My name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm a registered nurse. I was teaching the certified nursing assistant class, and then we brought iBest into it, for our class, our goal was to prepare the students not just for pass the certified nursing assistant exam, but to integrate the basic skills that they would need to go on to be an RN or LVN. And it would also make them, if they didn't plan on going on, a better CNA, but it was to prepare them for a TEAS test. The TEAS test in our nursing programs for the RN and LVN is the test of essential academic skills, and it's a standardized test that encompasses more like the SAT test or the California High School exam. It has math, it has reading, it has language, and it has a science component to it. So in our class, the way we would set it up, there were two teachers, and one was the basic skills teacher and one was the nursing teacher. And generally there'd be a short nursing lecture. We couldn't get away from that, although maybe if we did it longer, we could figure out a way. And then we try to break up the class as much as we can. I had nursing skills to teach. Basic skills would prepare them in the basic skills. We tried to integrate it with whatever we were doing. So if we were doing documentation, they would do writing, and they'd certainly do a lot more writing with the basic skills teacher than I ever taught in the class, even though it's still a part of a component of the class. That didn't change. We would do more math than we've ever done, and the lower level math, and then going on to the higher level math, which they would need as an RN or LVN, but not necessarily as a CNA. And that would prepare them to prepare them for the TEAS test. What was nice about having the math teacher and me in there, or the other nursing teacher, was why do you need this algebra? And we could just rattle off quick examples that they would have to figure out how many mics per kilo per minute, and they needed algebra to do that. So I think that just validated the need not only to pass the TEAS test, but yes, they may be using this math when they're in those different levels. So I was only a teacher for a short while, and I think most vocational or career tech teachers, their background is not teaching. So I think a benefit of the iBest was also to have a regular teacher come in, basic skills, and we learned from them, really, how to teach and how to wait on questions and how to put people in small groups and how to, I would have never thought of arranging people we did an assessment, but who's good in math and who's not good in math, and they sat next to each other. It might seem like common sense, but all the tricks of the trades, you learn a little bit more from those iBest teachers. The reason I wanted an iBest course was when I first started this, you have to understand I came from an RN position, working in the hospital. I actually worked in education in the hospital. And so now I'm at a lower level class, which takes much more teaching skills, in my opinion. But it was very depressing to see people think they were going to go on for RN or LVN. Yes, they could pass the state certification for CNA, but I knew in my heart, I mean, you don't have to be an educated teacher to know that they did not have the basic skills that they would need to further their career. And nor did you have the time to teach it to them. I loved teaching it with the iBest teacher. It was great. First of all, I think so I want to tell you the advantages of that. The students learn more. The students, we used our time more effectively. I mean, the students didn't have downtime. We got more information to the students and they got to practice it. And the best part about it was not that just they practiced it, but you had time to evaluate it and put people in small groups that were having difficulties and move people around. And I think I saw the significance of that. And having the students teach each other, so train the trainer type of thing, and that the preparation needed was very, very important, but it was worth its while. Well, first of all, the success was that they were able to pass the TEAS test and go on for their LVN and RN, but one of I think the most important things that came out of it was the student learned what they needed to. They may not have mastered everything in the integrated basic skills class, but they learned what they needed to know and what they didn't know. There were 2 teachers, but you had a preparer of who was doing what when. So little lecture, but then you had to know that some were working on computers, some may be on the nursing skills, some were in small groups with the IBEST teacher, or was the IBEST teacher going to do his little lecture and then break up in groups. So you had to be ready to have do your part, and also flexible with that, where he has a group that is just not getting it, and so we continue to do skills or go on to practice other things, so those people that were still studying maybe some part of the math or some part of the documentation wouldn't lose out on the lecture. The first and probably most important thing is to have buy-in from your administrators, because everybody will always want to look at outcomes. And the outcomes aren't just in the class when they get done, but they're a year down the line, 2 years down the line. So you have to have some buy-in from the administrators, because they will want this information of who's going to get that information and how are you going to do it. Coming from a smaller perspective, from the teaching perspective, you have to know who you're teaching with, and if you'll get along with them, and that you plan times to prepare the courses, and that they're flexible. When you're matching teachers up, you have to make sure you get along, but you also have to make sure you know what the goals are for the class, not just the mission statement, your own personal goals, their personal goals, but also who owns the class or who doesn't own the class. And I really think it helps if the vocational teacher doesn't own the class. Because people are going to think that anyway, because you're going into IBEST class with CNA, but that both of you have goals for the class. And then the other thing that you want to do is, and you'll do this naturally, but find out the strengths and the weaknesses of the 2 teachers. And I could tell you probably from my working with different vocational teachers that their strength is not the tricks of the trade of the teaching. So maybe you could even have that as a goal, that the teacher actually teaches them tricks of the trades, unless they've been doing it for 20 years, but we're never too old to learn. That could be one of their own personal goals. And the other one is the other teacher will have to learn part of the vocation so it fits in, and that's a big part. So you have to help each other out. And I think it's okay if the class knows that you both have strengths and weaknesses. And one of the strengths that my teacher had, plus we had the time, which you often don't have when there's only one teacher, is to see those subtle signs of a person is not understanding something, a person feels uncomfortable, and what you're going to do about that. And that could be educational issues, but it could also be social issues. And quite frankly, when I'm the only one teaching, I don't have time to pick. It's not my strength to begin with, but it's also I don't have time to pick up those cues and also work with them to do something about it.